I feel like a lioness today. My hair is just like exceptionally large. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my August wrap up for you because today is September 1st. It is also my lovely cousin Nina's birthday, so happy birthday Nina. And I'm so excited to talk to you guys about the books that I read in August. All the books that I'm talking about were actually featured in other videos, so this is going to be pretty brief because I've already talked about them, so if you want to hear about them in a bit more depth, then I will lead you to those other videos just because they're dedicated to these books. But anyway, without further delay, the first selection of books I have are all by Anton Chekhov, and that is because I did a week of reading Chekhov stories and it was wonderful and I dedicated a whole vlog to it. So if you don't know, if you're new here, I have a whole Russian lit series. I love Russian literature and I make specific videos surrounding certain Russian lit and Russian stories and Russian authors. So this one was for Anton Chekhov, and I read some short stories by him, a play by him, and I don't remember the exact order that I read them in actually, so I'm going to go off of my Goodreads. My Goodreads link is always down below if you want to follow me. Okay, the first one that I read was The Bet, and I think that was in this edition. The Bet was my favorite out of the ones that I read for that day. I loved it. It's a fantastic story. This is also the beautiful Pushkin Press edition. I love these so much. The paper quality is amazing and they just have gorgeous cover art. I always talk about this, but I love small books, so this just makes me really happy. I love reading small books. I don't know why. They're just fun. Let me scooch my stars over. Then I read Uncle Vanya, which is a play. So this is the Penguin Classics Black Spine edition of his plays, and I really liked Uncle Vanya. The more that I think about it, the more that I like it, because as I was reading it I was expecting an ending that I didn't get, because usually Chekhov endings have really big plot twists and they're really unexpected, and Chekhov's gun is like an aspect of foreshadowing that's usually prominent in his stories, but it wasn't as in your face as I was expecting it to be, so it kind of took me off guard. But the more that I think about it, the more that I think that it was a really genius way of finishing the play. So anyway, I really want to watch an adaptation of it, so that's my next step in Uncle Vanya, my Uncle Vanya journey. So that was Uncle Vanya, and then I also read, I think the rest of them except The Beauties was also in this edition, so I also read The Beauties, which I really enjoyed. And then I read out of this edition, this is the Modern Library paperback, Selected Stories of Anton Chekhov, translated by Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokonsky. I read The Man in a Box, The Death of a Government Clerk, Small Fry, and The Beauties in the other edition, and I really liked all of them. I've been really enjoying reading Chekhov, especially for that whole week of just reading Chekhov. I think that that's such a fun thing to do with someone that writes in short form, and I would love to do that with other authors as well, and I said that in my video and you guys gave me some really good suggestions, so I would love to do that in the future. But Anton Chekhov's a fantastic short story writer and playwright. I am very happily making my way through all of these short story collections and play collections, so I'm excited to continue on my Chekhov journey. And then the next book that I read I actually listened to on audiobook, and this was, I don't even remember what reread it was for me because I have read this book so many times because it's one of my favorites, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I actually listened to this because I was doing a tattoo reel, which, if you guys don't know, I do reels on my Instagram that are tattoos or illustrations based on different books. So this one was for tattoos for people who love Great Expectations was the one that I just posted today, The Great Gatsby. And I was thinking while I was working on my illustrations that I really wanted to listen to The Great Gatsby, so I listened to it on audiobook. I also listened to part of it when I was on the train heading into New York City, when I went to the Museum of Natural History with my best friend Emma, and that was a lot of fun. It was really interesting because The Great Gatsby is set on Long Island, and that's where I live, and at one point Nick Carraway, the main narrator, was talking about taking the railroad from Long Island into Manhattan, and that's exactly what I was doing. While I got to that part, I was going through the Valley of Ashes, or Queens. So when he was describing that, that's where I was, and it was such an interesting experience. It reminds me a lot of what happened to me when I read Anna Karenina for the first time. I was reading Anna Karenina at a specific scene near the end on the train heading back to school because I went to university in the city, and I was coming back from home to the city, and I was reading a scene that involved a train in Anna Karenina, and it was such an incredible experience, an out-of-body experience of I'm on a train and I'm reading about a train, and it was crazy. So anyway, I love The Great Gatsby. It is one of my favorite books ever. I know it's a love it or hate it book, but if you haven't read it, I would say give it a try. It's very short. I just featured it in another one of my videos about short classics. It is about 170 pages. It's just, the writing is so exquisite, and I love it very, very much. Then the next books that I read were all for a 24-hour readathon that I did with my best friend Emma, so we both uploaded vlogs on our channels. So if you want to hear me talk much more about these books, then I will direct you to my reading vlog and Emma's reading vlog. It was so much fun because it was our second 24-hour readathon. We love doing them together. We always FaceTime when we read together, and it just makes the whole experience a wonderful, wonderful time of two very nerdy best friends reading over FaceTime for 24 hours. So the first book that I read, and actually all of these books were picked by my dog Willow, so that's another video where Willow picks my TBR if you haven't seen that. Anyway, the first book that Willow picked for me was The Moon is Down by John Steinbeck. I have been working my way slowly through John Steinbeck's works. I have read Of Mice and Men in high school, which I really loved. And that's also another great short classic. And then I also read The Pearl by John Steinbeck, and that's another really great short classic as well. And then another really great short classic is The Moon is Down. And this story, I never really hear people talking about it, and I loved it. I loved it so much. It's described wonderfully on the back. It says, originally published at the zenith of Nazi Germany's power, this masterful fable uncovers profound, often unsettling truths about war. And if you guys know me, I say this all the time, I love a good war story, and about human nature. Steinbeck's self-described celebration of the durability of democracy had an extraordinary impact as Allied propaganda in Nazi-occupied Europe. Despite Axis efforts to suppress it in fascist Italy, mere possession of the book was punishable by death, which I think is so fascinating. And how important this book was at the time that it was published. The Moon is Down was secretly translated into French, Norwegian, Danish, Dutch, Swedish, German, Italian, and Russian. Hundreds of thousands of copies circulated throughout Europe, making it by far the most popular piece of propaganda under the occupation. Few literary works of our time have demonstrated so triumphantly the power of ideas in the face of cold steel and brute force. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, and the writing is just so beautifully harrowing, and I loved every page of this. So if you want to watch me read it, then there's a vlog all for it. And then I read Flush by Virginia Woolf, which is a fake biography, half fake, half real biography. I also featured this in the Short Classics video about a Cocker Spaniel named Flush that was owned by Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning, and we are in the perspective of Flush. It is wonderful. I loved it. The ending broke my heart. I feel like I keep talking about this book, but that is because it is just so wonderful, and I loved it so much. And I love Virginia Woolf, another great short classic. And then the next one, I guess also because these are perfect for 24-hour readathons, which is why I always gear towards short books. Also, I've been very busy recently, so short books are my friend. And then I read Roald Dahl's Fantastic Mr. Fox. I love the Wes Anderson movie, but I've never read the book before. And what I was surprised by was how I feel like they go a little bit more in depth and they develop the story a bit deeper in the movie, which is usually not what happens. It's usually the other way around. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was so funny. His writing is just hilarious and witty and clever, and I love the illustrations by Quentin Blake. They just match so beautifully together with Roald Dahl's writing style, so loved this. And then I listened to that on audiobook, and the audiobook was actually narrated by Roald Dahl, which I love. I love when I can find audiobooks narrated by the authors. And the audiobook that I picked had, I think, 4 or 5 stories by Roald Dahl, all narrated by him. in it, and I finished this quicker than I expected for the 24-hour readathon, so I needed more books to read. And then I picked Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and this was actually the first time that I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as well. I think it was pretty much an exact adaptation, the films, that I grew up watching the films and I didn't grow up reading the book, which is often what happened with me. I don't know why. I always grew up watching films and then later on realized that they were books originally. So it was so wonderful to read the original story, and I do think it's a very faithful adaptation. Everything that I remember happening in the movie happened in the book, so that was very enjoyable. I also read James and the Giant Peach, which, again, I don't think I've ever seen an adaptation of, actually, and that was my first time reading the story. And again, I enjoyed it. Roald Dahl he's just so clever, and I feel like no one writes like him. It's just nonsense and uniqueness and wonder and whimsy, and I guess maybe a classic version of that, or a more classic version of that, would be Lewis Carroll. Yeah, but anyway, really enjoyed those. And then the second to last book was The Prisoner of the Caucasus by Leo Tolstoy, which is a short story, and we are going to be, me and Emma, because we are the co-hosts of the Dickens versus Tolstoy debate, that's why we read it. For the book club, we will be having a debate on this on September 10th, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, on Emma's channel at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very excited for that, and I really enjoyed it. I kind of was questioning the ending, so yes, anyway, we will get more into that at a later date. I still haven't finished the second book, or the second story that we are supposed to be reading for that live show, which is The Cossacks. I need to keep reading it. I'm about 2 chapters in. I'm falling far behind. But anyway, and then the last book that I have to tell you guys about is a Beatrix Potter book, and that is The Tale of Timmy Tiptoes. I thought that this was such an adorable story, and it is about a squirrel husband and wife, and a chipmunk husband and wife, and their adventures and misadventures of collecting nuts for winter. I love Beatrix Potter. Also, how adorable is that? Her illustrations just have spoken to me since I was a very, very small child. I just think that all children's books, especially Beatrix Potter, especially a lot of the middle grade books that I love, they're perfect to read at any age, and they're definitely worth reading at any age. Also, her illustrations are just absolutely breathtaking, and as an illustrator myself, she is just one of my biggest inspirations. So loved this, thought it was adorable. So that is all that I read in August. I say that's all, but I did read quite a lot, but that is because I did specific videos about Anton Chekhov and then a 24-hour readathon. This month has been quite crazy. I was going to say quite crazy. And September is also going to be quite crazy. So I don't know how much reading I will get done. Hopefully I will get done a good amount. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I highly recommend all of these books. None of them were really disappointments or anything, which is so great. It's funny that the more that I read, and the further I get into my reading journey, the less disappointing books I read, which I guess is a good thing, because I know what I will enjoy, and I know maybe what to stay away from. That's not really my style or my taste. So anyway, I think that that's interesting. So that is all that I read. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to know what you read in August, if you have read any of these books, what you want to read in September, and I will see you very soon in another video. Have a fantastic day, and happy reading!